You must be Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Katie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you find the place okay?
I did.
You can go ahead and have a seat right there.
Great, thank you.
How's the weather out there? I heard it's getting crazy.
Yeah, it actually is kind of icy and scary out right now. So.
Well, thank you for making the trek.
I'm glad I made it.
Yeah. Great. So before we get started, like I said, I'm Caitlin. I'm going to be seeing you today and hopefully moving forward as well.
Great.
So before we go ahead and get started, there are a couple of housekeeping details that I like to get taken care of up front. So I know you had signed an informed consent form before coming here today.
Yeah.
But I did want to go over confidentiality and then see if you have any questions, and we can go from there.
Okay.
So as far as confidentiality goes, everything we discussed today and moving forward will stay between you and I. That's outside of my supervisor. So I am currently a student at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I'm working on obtaining my license to become a licensed counseling psychologist. That being said, my supervisor and the details that we go over regarding your case and my other cases as well stay between her and I, and it's really just to ensure that I'm providing you and my clients with the best services possible. There are 3 other exceptions to confidentiality I should let you know about. So if I hear anything about intent to harm yourself or others, as well as child or elder abuse, and then if I am court mandated to provide information, those are 3 cases in which I would need to go ahead and report. Are there any questions?
No, I don't think so. Do I need to be signing anything today, or?
No, I think you already signed your informed consent form, except, actually, I'm glad you reminded me, there is one more form that I want to get taken care of. So, as I mentioned, I am currently working on obtaining my license to become a practicing and licensed psychologist. So, part of that and part of my training is to videotape sessions and then use those to kind of learn from my sessions, work with my supervisor, and see where I can improve. So this is completely optional and up to you, but it would be very helpful to be able to tape our sessions and kind of review them with my supervisor. They are all destroyed immediately after her and I review them. But again, it's totally up to you.
I'm comfortable with that, yeah.
Great. Well, I really appreciate it's very helpful in the learning process. So if you could just go ahead and sign.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So I know that can be a little bit tedious, all of that. So now that we have all of that out of the way, tell me what brings you in today.
So I finally just kind of worked up the courage to come to therapy because I'm experiencing really, to me, feels like really debilitating symptoms of anxiety. Like I'm really struggling at work and at home to focus and concentrate, and I'm having, what I think is anxiety, these sharp pains in my chest and difficulty breathing. And I think what's really freaking me out right now is I never know when to anticipate it or when it's going to come. And I work at a job that requires me to be physically, mentally present. I'm a director of events at a restaurant here in Chicago, so I'm coordinating a lot of big events with a lot of people, and I need to be, present and able to communicate and not suffering from these, these waves of anxiety where I'm having a hard time breathing in and breathing out and talking and just forming my thoughts and trying to move from one thing to the next. So I'm at the point where this is really affecting both work and my friends know something's wrong because I'm not as eager to go out and spend time with them. And it's nothing against them. It's just the thought of having to go socialize with other people when, I could have one of these waves of anxiety is just like too much for me. So I just figure at this point, like I need to do something because I can't keep, living like this day by day, and suffering at work and suffering at home. So yeah, that's the main reason for me coming in today is these symptoms that are happening right now. Yeah.
It sounds like that would be really tough to deal with. Not only
Yeah.
do you have this intense anxiety, but you also have a job that sounds incredibly demanding.
Yeah, it is.
Which probably doesn't really help.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's helping. I do think that I'm good at it when I'm working at my best ability, but it is extremely stressful. And, my boss puts a lot of pressure on me. And my boss is actually my stepbrother. So he owns the restaurant, and it adds to the stress because I think he expects a lot from me. And I think the fact that, we're related adds a weird component to the workspace. So yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. He puts a lot of pressure on me. But work is definitely a big source of anxiety. And then, yeah, it's affecting work and home too. So
Sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely struggling with that right now.
So would you say that work and your job as a director of events, you said, would you say that that's your biggest source of anxiety?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. There's definitely other things going on in my life that kind of have just come flooding in right now that are adding to it, I think, but work definitely feels like the biggest part that's causing anxiety right now.
Well, you spend a lot of time at work, so I can see how that could be a big part of your day every single day.
Yeah, I work long hours, so depending on if I have an event or not, I could be there until 8 or 9, even 10, and I get there at 8 in the morning, so working long days, depending on how much I've got going on and what events I have going on, so yeah.
That must be really difficult. Long days of just being kind of on edge, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Just trying to make it through the day.
Yeah. So I know, and I commend you for coming in and taking that step. I know it can be scary, but would you say that the anxiety has gotten worse recently? Have you always kind of been feeling this way and you just now decided to come in?
So I think that's part of what's weird for me is I never was an anxious person growing up. Anxiety wasn't something I suffered from. I knew I had friends who were anxious and whatnot, but I was not an anxious kid. I was not an anxious, adolescent or teen. So that's why like the fact that this is just emerging now in adulthood is kind of a lot to handle. So yeah.
And when you haven't been that way your whole life, I'm sure that can, maybe be alarming.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not used to feeling like this at all.
So was there a time, can you recall a time when the intense anxiety kind of started?
Probably like a year ago is when I started getting symptoms, and then like 3 months ago, it's when I really started feeling the debilitating symptoms. But the first time I started seeing any symptoms at all were about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's when I would say it started. Yeah.
And how long have you been the director of events?
I've been working here for 4.5 years.
Okay, so that's been a while.
Yeah, it's definitely been a while. It's, I finished college and went and worked at a different restaurant doing social media and whatnot, not in such a big position, and I did that for a few years, and then when my brother opened up this restaurant, my stepbrother, he invited me on the team, and but I mean the job has been hard throughout, but I'm feeling this anxiety this past year, and then 3 months in particular.
Yeah, Would you say anything changed either a year ago or 3 months ago in your role, or maybe outside of your role?
In my role, not necessarily. I mean, I haven't gotten a raise or anything, which I think, except within the first year, I think I got one. And then, so I'm definitely waiting for another raise or some signs of appreciation. But aside from work, what's happened in the past year is that my mom has been out of my life for a while, since I was officially, the last time I'd seen her was when I was a senior in high school. So about 10 years. And she just came back into my life because my uncle had she has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and she refused treatment when I was younger. And there's a lot of history with that, but basically what's happened in the past year is that my uncle got in contact with me and asked me to reach out to her, and I hadn't heard from her in a while. And so I reached out to her, and I found out that she's actually doing better because she's on court-mandated medications, but she has a diagnosis of leukemia, so she's doing better, but she's sick. So, yeah, it's been interesting processing that information. But that's would be a big thing that happened in this last year. And then also I started seeing somebody like 6 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on your mom, but first tell me, you have a new relationship, you said, as of 6 months ago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how has that been? What's that been like?
Really good. He's a super good person and has a stable job and basically everything, I was looking for. What's been difficult was what was it? 3 weeks ago, he left for a month-long trip with his friends in Europe. And so I think that too, like, being separated from him has been really difficult, especially I know it's just a month, but something about him being gone has just like really triggered my anxiety as well. So yeah, but other than that, the relationship's gone really well so far. He's someone I can really rely on and trust. It's just not having him here has been hard.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah.
You probably just miss him.
Yeah, definitely.
He might be someone that usually is supporting you, so when he's not there, it might feel
definitely
like an empty space. Great. Well, I'm glad that that's going well for you. And then your mom. So I'm sorry to hear about her recent diagnosis, but tell me what it's been like. I can't imagine. Yeah. That new information and kind of being in contact with her again.
Yeah. So it's been interesting because I'm kind of easing into developing a relationship with her again because we spent so much time apart and not talking, and she was sick, and I didn't know what was going on with her. She was living in another state. So having her come back in has just been like, it's like meeting somebody who you kind of thought was dead, like she wasn't around. I accepted that she was sick and she wasn't going to get help. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the court mandated her to take medication, and she's doing better. And I talked to her on the phone, and she sounds really good. And so that I had talked to her on the phone. I heard about her leukemia. We've been keeping in contact. And then my sister and I decided to go visit her. She lives in Wisconsin. And her mental health is a lot better, but again, she's sick and has to start treatment, and she doesn't have any money. So my sister and I aren't just going to provide all this for her because she has been out of our lives for so long, but it's been an interesting relationship to navigate and situation to navigate because we want to help her, but we don't want her to just completely rely on us after all this. So we're kind of trying to slowly ease back in, and like we sent her a care package the other week, and we helped her get a cell phone when we were out there. But it's been really interesting for me trying to figure out how I want to go about this. And I find myself getting really anxious when I'm talking to her too often, and she's relying on me and calling me a lot sometimes. And I sometimes am finding myself needing to take a step back because it's a lot to come flooding in at once. So it's been interesting trying to navigate the situation after so many years of being apart.
I can imagine. It sounds to me like you do a really good job of understanding boundaries when you need to take a step back.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of time that has passed between you and your mother.
Right.
So I know you said that you and your sister have kind of taken the lead on reconnecting with her and everything. Do you have other brothers and sisters? What is the rest of your family like?
So going back again, when I was in 4th grade, my parents got divorced, and that's when, my mom was showing signs of schizophrenia, and so they got divorced, and my dad had eventually gotten custody of us because of my mom's mental health, and then eventually when I was in 8th grade, my dad got remarried. 7th grade. My dad got remarried, and his wife, so his wife had 3 kids, and then my dad and my mom had me and my older sister. So now we're kind of a blended family. So I have 1 biological sister and then 3 step-siblings.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And do you get along with everyone really well?
Yeah, the person I have the biggest challenge with is my stepbrother, who I'm working for right now, just because he's not necessarily the type of person I respect professionally. He doesn't do things in a way that I would see as professional.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just think he is really self-centered and thinks about himself a lot, and so I hear employees talking badly about him, and it's an awkward situation for me because I love him, but he doesn't treat the staff as well as he probably should. So for me, it's a weird situation to be in because I'm working for him, but I'm also related to him, and I think staff thinks I will say things to him, but honestly, I wouldn't. So just morally, I think we're different people. So he's the one I have the biggest challenges with, but my stepsisters and my biological sister get along a lot. And I get along with my stepbrother. We're civil with each other. We love each other. It's just, there's some fundamental differences, I think.
Yeah. And does your stepbrother have any idea what kind of stress you're under? Does he...
I've told him, and he doesn't understand that. He does not understand when I explain to him, the feelings of anxiety and whatnot. I think he tried to tolerate it for a little bit, and be understanding, but at this point, he's come on, you need to get it together. You need to be professional at work. You can't go home because you're not feeling well and whatnot. And honestly, I don't think it's necessarily his fault. His mom, my stepmom, is very similar, especially with something that's not a concrete illness, something that's more mental health related. I think they have a hard time understanding. So no, I don't think he understands how much stress. And I've tried to explain it, but he doesn't seem to hear me. So,
So tell me, I know, I think you had mentioned sharp pains in your chest.
Yeah.
Hard to breathe sometimes. Tell me a little bit more about what anxiety looks like for you.
Okay, yeah. So the worst part about it for me is like I was saying, where when I'm at work and I have these waves of really bad anxiety where it feels crippling, I'm just focusing on breathing in and out, and there is a sharp pain in my chest, and I also have a really hard time focusing, like remaining focused on my work. And part of that, I think, is because I'm focusing so much on the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it's because I have like these racing thoughts, like my mind is just racing. And that doesn't just happen at work, that happens at home too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep, which actually is another part, like I have a hard time falling asleep. And then, like, so I'm not getting a lot of sleep every night, and then I'll wake up early in the morning, like 2 in the morning, and like have to watch part of a show before I can fall back asleep, or like do something for an hour or so before I'm even able to fall back asleep. But yeah, the sharp pain and like physical pain I'm feeling at work's really hard. And it makes it hard to interact with people. So it's definitely not conducive for my work environment.
Sure.
And like sometimes I forget what I'm doing because I'm not feeling good. And then because I don't know if it's because I'm not getting a lot of sleep, but I'm tired all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so exhausted. I'm tired at work. I'm tired at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I get home, I just want to lay in bed and like take a nap. But then again, I still have a hard time falling asleep at night. So yeah, the difficulty concentrating at work and racing thoughts, and then chest pain, difficulty breathing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you say, I know it's hard to concentrate at work. Is your anxiety the worst at work? And if so, what moments are you noticing it getting worse or better?
I definitely would say it's worst. It's the worst at work. So I think it's because I almost feel like trapped. I'm like stuck
Mm-hmm.
at work, and I'm not sure what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the most intense while I'm at work. And lasts the longest. Like sometimes I'll be sitting there for 2 hours, like trying to just like get stuff done, like step by step. At least when I'm at home, or with friends, like my friends know I'm feeling anxious, or if I'm at home, I can call someone or like lay down. I can actually try to take care of myself. Where at work, there's not really anything I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it happens the most at work, and then definitely the most severe. But it's happening all the time. Mm-hmm. It's just I can manage it more when I'm not at work.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So when you say you can manage it better when you're not at work, what are you doing to kind of cope with that?
So I haven't found something that's just like alleviating it, but like turning the lights off, laying down, calling my friend and talking to my friend. What else? There's not a whole lot. Like trying to watch a show maybe to distract myself. I like being with my friends, so it doesn't always make the anxiety go away, but at least distracts me a little bit. And so if I can spend time with my friends, like ideally that's what I'd like to do, but not a big group. What's been working well is if I'm hanging out with just 1 or 2 friends at a time, because when I'm in a big group, like it's a little overwhelming. Yeah.
Sure. So it sounds like you have kind of this base level of anxiety.
Yeah.
That's worse significantly at work, and that never really goes away, but is better when you're with friends.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're totally at peace, and 10
Mm-hmm.
being the worst anxiety you can imagine, what would you say is that baseline?
So like just my average anxiety. Depends. I think typically I would say a 5. Like my baseline is at a 5, and then my absolute worst at work is probably a 10. I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I guess if I'm feeling pretty good, it's maybe a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I think you started to paint a really good picture for me. But something I also like to kind of explore with new clients, especially, is just kind of go into your background. I know you told me a little bit about your family and growing up. But I would also like to touch on a couple of cultural aspects that may help me understand you a little bit better. So on your intake form, you indicated that you're 30. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you have any, other than the anxiety, do you have any developmental or other disabilities that would be helpful for me to know about?
No.
Okay. And do you consider yourself religious or spiritual at all?
I do. I mean, my dad raised me Catholic, and he encourages us all to go to church often, and I do try to go. It's something that I kind of picked up a little more as my boyfriend and I started dating.
Is he religious?
He is not Catholic. He's Protestant, but it's something that my dad really values in a partner. So it's something that kind of he's been encouraging us to do. So we've been actually going, and I've been enjoying it, kind of exploring, going back to church again.
Okay, that's great. And then how would you say you identify racially and ethnically? Excuse me.
Caucasian, and yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, and you grew up here, so
Yeah.
Are you U.S. born?
Yeah.
Then? Okay. And then finally, if you don't mind me asking, what is your sexual orientation and gender identity, and then what pronouns do you prefer that I use?
She, her, and then I identify as a female, and sexual orientation, I like men.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then another kind of first session housekeeping tool that I like to use. These are questions that I go through with every client in their first session.
Okay.
They may seem silly, but I promise it's something that I do routinely. So just kind of bear with me.
Okay.
Do you know today's date?
January 22nd, 2019.
Perfect. And what season are we in?
Winter.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Where are we right now?
The Chicago School in the Merchandise Mart.
Perfect. I'm going to say 3 objects, and then if you could just repeat them when I'm done, that would be great. So book, rug, and train.
Okay. Book, rug, train.
Perfect. And then if you could count backwards for me from 100 by 5s,
Okay.
that would be great.
100, 95, 90, 85, 80, 75, 70, 65, 60.
That's perfect.
Okay. Okay.
And then if you could spell world backwards for me, that would be great.
DLROW.
Great. I've tried that one. It always takes me a second.
Yeah.
And then do you remember the 3 objects that I mentioned?
Oh gosh. Rug, train, book.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay, and then if you could name a type of animal and a type of candy bar.
A type of animal. Just any animal?
Any animal.
Okay. A tiger and a Twix bar.
Perfect. And then I'm going to have you go ahead and read this command out loud and then follow its instructions.
Close our eyes.
Perfect. And then the last thing I'm going to have you do is just write any complete sentence you'd like on this piece of paper.
Okay.
Perfect. Great, thank you. Like I said, I know that can seem silly, but I appreciate you bearing with me.
Yeah.
Great. So to kind of summarize what we talked about today, I know you have this base level of anxiety that never really seems to go away.
Yeah.
It's significantly worse at work.
Yeah.
And something that I imagine you might want to work on is just reducing that anxiety.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe learning to cope with it.
Yeah.
A little bit more. And one thing that I did want to touch on again, I know a lot of people who suffer from anxiety, which is a lot of people, they oftentimes might feel, down in the dumps or other things in addition to the anxiety. So what would you say your mood is like other than anxious?
Yeah. I'm a little frustrated just because I'm tired of feeling like this, and I know, like, this is not who I am. This is not something that I've suffered from my whole life. And then, I think then just the anxiety is just overwhelming. So those are the two most frequent moods, I think.
Okay.
I would say.
And have you ever had any thoughts of harming yourself or others?
No.
No. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for kind of sharing all of this about your anxiety. As we kind of near the end of the session, is there anything that I maybe didn't ask or something that we should spend a little more time talking about?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I think there's parts of my background, like my growing up and my mom, that we'll probably explore further along the line. But I think I got to talk about a good chunk of that today. So I don't think there's necessarily anything that we're missing right now. Other than, I have a really good support group. My friends are really understanding. So I have a good support system, and like we already talked about my family. So, I think that's pretty much it.
Great. Well, you're absolutely right. We can continue to kind of explore everything that you touched on today. Well, I want to thank you again for coming in. Like I said, it's not easy taking that first step. So I certainly, it takes a lot of strength. And I know you might have to look at your schedule, but I would love to have you come in again next week. We can kind of pick up where we left off and continue exploring kind of what we touched on today.
Definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Great. Well, then we can schedule something, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.